Dr. Ruiz Online uses reasonable care in selecting and providing content that is both useful and accurate. Dr. Ruiz Online does not represent, however, that the instructional materials are error-free or that the content or materials are comprehensive. Any opinions expressed in the materials are those solely of Dr. Ruiz and not necessarily shared by the entire dental profession. By viewing this video, you have read and accepted the legal disclaimer, including the rules and regulations that you agreed to during registration.
Everything ready for the mounting. The first thing is he's placing right now is the mounting plate, the Kois mounting plate, which has already the Facebook plate on it. Now he's placing the cast on top of these components, and he's making sure he has the appropriate amount of clearance. The incisal pin is already on zeros. Now we have a disposable mounting component that is going to be that it has also is a magnetic plate that allows us to remove those casts easily in and out and replace them as necessary. I consider that it's very, very important to make sure that when we mix plaster and the water, we use the measuring device to do so. And as you notice, my assistant did utilize a measured amount of water for the correct amount of powder, because by doing so we decrease the amount of adverse contraction of the plaster. We know that there's going to be a certain amount of contraction, doesn't matter what we do, but at least by utilizing the correct powder liquid amount, we will minimize that as much as possible. Now he is preparing to put the plaster on the magnetic plate, and he's filling it up carefully. You know, we want to make sure that he doesn't get our articulator all dirty with plaster, because we want to use that articulator to show it to our patient. So we want to be, you know, he wants to be careful. He was very, very fast, so now he is waiting a little bit for the plaster not to be so runny in order to place it on the cast. Now he will be placing that plaster on top of the cast. He will adapt it very quickly because this plaster is fast set, and we don't want to let it beat us and get harder before we're ready. Then he's just adapting it. Now he is going to, as soon as he's done with that, he's going to flip the maxillary component of the articulator, and so then there will be a contact with the plaster on the magnetic plate in the cast. And that's it. He's done. Now we're just waiting for this plaster to set, to get hard. It will take like 5-10 minutes. Now he is separating the cast from the Panadent face bow plate, and you notice that he had to push lingually or to the back of the articulator to make sure he didn't break the incisal edges of the plaster of the cast. The next step is place the maxillary and the mandibular cast on the bite. Make sure that there's good adaptation between the bite. And I usually like, some dental assistants or technicians don't necessarily like to bind the two casts together. I usually like to do so, and this is how I would do it. I would use either hot glue gun or very fast acting acrylic glue. And this is using the hot glue gun and a clip, and a metal clip, paper clip. And by doing that, by binding or by gluing both maxillary and mandibular casts with the bite in between, we make sure that we have a very, very accurate result. Some technicians do not like to do that, and as long as they hold the cast together, they usually can attain very good results. So now he is placing the maxillary magnetic plate in place, because those plasters are bound together. They're not going to separate. He's mixing the plaster with the correct amount of water again, and he's going to mix. Again, he is pretty fast, so he's gonna mix this, and we will see that just as we did it on the maxillary components, we're going to apply it first on the magnetic plate, removable magnetic plate on the mandibular part of the articulator. Then we're going to do the same to the plaster, to the mandibular cast, and then we're going to carefully hold them together. So at this point I will allow you to observe this procedure. One thing to take into consideration is that my preference during this mounting of cast is not to beautify the cast at the time that we are doing the initial mounting, because as you are well aware, the plaster has quite a bit of contraction, and the more plaster we use to fully bind the magnetic plate to the articulator and the plaster, the more contraction we will have. So I intentionally like to just permit contact between the magnetic plate and the cast, leave a space in between, and then on a second mix, beautify the cast. The Panadent articulator has a maxillary component that will allow you to actually flip the articulator and to mount it in a different way. This is the technique that I use and my dental assistants use, or my dental technicians would use. But there is another optional component that Panadent has, which is a mandibular mounting jig. But this is how I do it. And I make sure that my technician holds, or my assistant holds the cast very well, so the gravity will not separate it, and just flip it like that. And then once the plaster is in contact with the lower part, then it's pretty stable. Nothing is gonna go anywhere, and we just wait until it's fully set. Of course, with the magic of video, we waited 5 to 10 minutes. Now it's fully set. Now we remove the clips. That you saw how easy it was to remove them, and then this first part is finished. Now the casts are properly mounted, and as you can see, they are not beautiful yet. And to make them beautiful, we're going to do a separate mixing that will allow us to beautify those casts. And beautifying the cast is very important, because this is something that we're going to be sharing with our patients, and we want to be sure that the patients can see that we like to do things in a proper fashion. Also, often we will share this cast with our colleagues, and we're going to be referring this patient to the specialist. So when we have nice mounted casts, it will look prettier. Everything will look more professional. And to be quite honest with you, as you see right here, this is an extra step that my assistants have to do that takes only 2-3 minutes. And when they mix for both maxillary and mandibular, and they will make them both pretty in one intention. So it is definitely worthwhile. I think it's very important to present things well. Now that he has filled up both upper and lower mounted casts, now he's going to use water to just make them look nice and smooth. And of course, you know that if you are going to be doing this with plaster in your sinks, you need to make sure you need to have either a plastic trap or something on the sink to make sure that you don't have your plaster go into your sink and really damage your drainage. So he's just basically, this is a very simple thing. He's just smoothing it up with water, and it's gonna end up being very pretty.